Hi guys, welcome back again to my YouTube channel. My name is Kwesi, and in today's tutorial we're going to be learning how to draft and cut this beautiful dress you're seeing right here on the screen. So if you're interested to join me on this process, keep on watching and let's get started. And if you're here to subscribe, kindly hit the subscribe button so you get notified anytime new video is being uploaded. Okay. So in this video, we're going to be learning the drafting part. In our next tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you guys on how to sew and stitch all of your piece together. Okay, so guys, let's dive right into today's tutorial. So guys, these are the material I'm making use of. I have my Ankara fabric of 6 yards here, and I also have my net of 1 yard. So this is sample lace, as you can see, and I'm making use of lace for the combination of the yoke, okay, and the sleeve you get. So what I'm going to do is to spread this Ankara right now. Just spread it in a fold of two like this. So I want to first cut out the down part of this gown. For the gown length, I'm working with 36 inches length, okay, and I said to add extra half I need to make it 36 and a half, and I added extra 2 inches for the folding and sewing allowance, so that will give me 8.5 inches. Okay, so after adding your allowance, you go ahead and subtract your half length. My half length is 15 inches, and you can see that I subtracted it at the upper side like this. Can you see? You just subtract your half length. Mine is 15 inches. After marking a straight line, I'll come down by 8 inches. This is for my hip line. Okay, so the next thing to do now is on the waistline, you mark quarter of your waist measurement plus 3 inches stitching allowance as for the dart. Okay, and for the hip line, you mark quarter of your hip measurement plus 2 inches. After that, you connect from the waist to the hip. After you're done connecting, you measure what you have there in total on the hip line. Then mine is 11 inches, and I subtracted 1 inch to make it 10 inches. Okay, so at the hem part, I marked 10 inches, then I connected it this way. After doing this, I'll go ahead and cut it out. So this is for the front piece. So this is what I had after I was done connecting. This is how yours should look like. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is to cut out the back. So for the back, I'll fold another fabric by two, then I'll place the front piece on top of this other one. Okay, so when you place yours, you give 1 inch space for the zip allowance. As you can see, I gave space for my zip allowance. Okay, so I'll measure it. I have 1 inch there. Then right now, I'll just go ahead and cut it out like this. So after cutting, guys, next thing I want to do now is to avoid a zip watch at the back of my dress. So to do that, on the zip allowance side, on the center side of the back piece, you come down by 1 inch. Then after that, you make a slant line to the other point. Just connect from there to the other point. After doing that, you go ahead and cut it out. You can see what I did here. So come up by 1 inch. If you do that, you're not having any zip watch at the back of your dress after sewing. Okay, so once you're through with that, you make a notch on your zip allowance side and also slash it into two. Okay, and for the dart, I will do that before joining the half length. So the next thing I want to do now is to cut out the upper part, but I will use a drafting method for it. That means that I'm going to be using a brown paper. So this is my brown paper. The first thing I want to do now is to make a straight line across. This will serve as my starting line or my starting point. Okay, so remember my half length was 15 inches plus 1 inch for the allowance. We make it 16 inches. Okay, so the total length I have here is 16 inches including the allowance. All right, so the next thing I want to do now is to first I'll come down by my bust point of 9.5. Also mark 12.5 inches for my under bust. Then the waistline is 15 inches. I marked it as well. I'll repeat the same thing here. Then after making my point, I'll use my ruler to make a straight line across. After marking my straight line, I'll label the first line as my bust point, second line under bust, and the waistline. Then I'll label the last line AL. AL means the allowance. Okay, so from the bust point, I'll come up by 2 inches. After making my point, I'll use my ruler to connect it, okay, in a straight line. So this will serve as my chest line, and the label as CL. CL means my chest line. So from the upper line to the chest line, I have 7.2 inches. Then I'll mark half of my shoulder measurement. Then add extra half an inch to it for the stitching allowance. Then make a straight line. You just connect from there to the other point. Then after that, you label as the shoulder line. Okay, so I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. Then measure and divide what you have left. Also come in by half inch. Then you mark quarter of your bust measurement on the chest line. Then you can see I have three dots here. I'll use my curve rule to connect it. Okay, you just connect it to make your curve, your armhole curve, like this. Can you see? So once I'm through with that, the next thing I want to do now is to mark 3 inches for my neck wideness. After making my point there, I'll use my ruler to connect my shoulder slope. Okay, so this is my shoulder slope. Next thing I want to do again is to come down by 3 inches for the neck depth. Okay, after making my point, I will also use my curve rule to connect. All right, I connected it as a round neckline, just like this. So once you're through with that, the next thing you want to do now is on the bust point, you're going to mark half of your nipple to nipple. Okay, mine is 7 inches, so divided by 2 is 3.5. I marked it on my bust point. After marking that on the under bust, I will mark 3 inches. That means I removed half inch from half of my nipple to nipple. Okay, so after marking on the under bust, I also did same thing on the waistline. Then I connected it. Okay, you can see I made a straight line with it. Then I also connect from the bust point to the waistline. Okay, so after I was done with that, I placed my tape from the shoulder to the chest line. I have 7.2 inches. So what I want to do now is to come up by 6 inches. Okay, I came up by 6.5, sorry. So after making my point, I will give a straight line, just mark a straight line like that. So this new line becomes my new chest line, and I labeled as my new chest line. Okay, so the next thing I want to do now is to mark 3 inches at the upper side. Do the same thing on the chest line, then go ahead and connect. Okay, so if your off shoulder is 6 inches, you come up by 6 inches for your new chest line. Okay, mine is always 5 inches or 5.5. Okay, so on the under bust on this other side, I marked 2 inches, then I connected it. Okay, the next thing I'll do again is to make a curve from the under bust to my bust point, just like this. You can also achieve this using your free hand. So after making my curve here, what I'll do next is to also come inside here. I'll just come outside by 1 inch. This is just to avoid caping on our bustier. Okay, you can also mark 1.5 if you are too bursty. So next thing you want to do now is to achieve the sweetheart neckline. So to do that, I came down by 1 inch. Okay, on this new chest line, I came down by 1 inch. So I mistakenly used the wrong side of the curve. So right now I replaced it again in a normal way, that is in a rightful way. Then I went ahead to make my sweetheart neckline. Okay, so this is my sweetheart neckline. All right, this is it, guys. All right. So what I'm going to do next is to add my measurements. So for the bust, you mark quarter of your bust measurement plus 2 inches seam allowance and replace the 1 inch you marked on the chest line. So on the waistline, you do the same thing. Mark quarter of your waist measurement, replace the 2 inches you have there, and also add 2 inches for your seam allowance. Okay, so after it's done marking, I'll just go ahead and make this curve from the armhole. You connect it to this other point. Okay, so this is not corset, it's not a corset at all. Okay, so now you go ahead and cut this out. So after cutting this out, after cutting everything out, I'll go ahead and make the open yoke neckline at the side of the yoke. Okay, so go ahead and cut it out. Okay, just look at what I'm doing here so you know exactly where to cut out. Okay, so after cutting everything out, you can see what I have here. This is how it should look after you're done cutting. All right, so I'll just keep this other one aside, then I'll work on the stylish open yoke neckline at the side of the yoke. Okay, so to do that, I'll mark half of my nipple to nipple, which is 3.5. I marked it, then I did the same thing here as well. Then I used my ruler to just connect the line. Okay, just connect the point. So once you are through with that, you come down by half an inch on your shoulder line. Come down by half an inch, then make a straight line across like this. After that, place your tape again on the shoulder line, then measure what you have there. Okay, I have 4 inches, so I'll divide the 4 inches by 2 and I'll mark 2 inches. Then after marking, you mark it on this new line you just came down by half an inch. So you connect it. Okay, so after that, I marked 1 inch for the opening. Okay, for the open side shoulder, I marked 1 inch. So after marking this 1 inch, I went ahead to connect. You just have to connect it. You can see what I'm doing here. You connect it like this, like it's something like C. Okay, just connect it, make a curve like a C curve. Okay, so after that, I just noticed it might be too open and I'm here to sew it. Okay, so because of that, I had to, come inside a little bit. Then after that, I went ahead to just open it up like this. Just look at what I'm doing here. You just go ahead and cut it out just like this. Okay, so after I was done cutting, you can see what I have here. Now I will open it up and this is exactly how everything looks like. Can you see? Okay, so this is it, guys. This is how yours should look like, and I'll label as yoke. Okay, so this is the wrong side. You can see the wrong side of the paper. This is how everything is looking. Okay, so I'll just bring the front piece, and after joining, you have exactly something looking like this. Okay, this is how you should look once you're done. I got this right. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do now is to just keep this aside, then I'll work on the back piece. Well, the back piece is very simple to cut or to draft. What I did here was to make a straight line across. Okay, it will serve as my hem line. Okay, so I just placed my tape, then I marked 16 inches. Remember I told you my half length was 15 inches plus 1 inch for the allowance is 16. Then I went ahead to mark. After marking, I also add 1 inch for the zip allowance. If you don't want to add zip allowance, there's no need marking this. If you want to make loops, there's no need marking a zip allowance. Okay, so after marking, I labeled a zip allowance, then I placed my tape, then I came down by the 15 inches for the waistline, and I also came down by 7.5 inches for the chest line. So after that, I drew a straight line across, then label as the waistline and chest line. Okay, once I'm through with that, on the shoulder line, you divide it by 2 plus half inch stitching allowance, make a straight line with it. Then also come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope. Then mark 3 inches for the neck wideness, and for the neck depth of the back piece, I came down by 1.5 inch. Okay, so from here, I made my curve at 1.5 inch. Okay, so after making my round neckline, just like we did on the front pattern, I will just mark and achieve my armhole curve. Okay, so I want to use my curve rule to achieve this. Okay, just place your curve rule like this, then you go ahead and achieve it by making your curve. Then after that, I'll mark 3.5 inches for half of my nipple to nipple, then make a straight line with it. After that, I'll also subtract half inch on both sides. This is for the dart. Okay, so go ahead and do yours like this. So after doing my like this is what I have here. Okay, now I will add my body measurement. You divide your bust measurement by 4. Mark it, then add 2 inches for the seam allowance. Do the same thing for the waistline as well. Then you connect it. After connecting, the next thing I want to do now is to achieve an open yoke neckline for the back. I want the back to have an open yoke neckline. Okay, a stylish open yoke neckline. So for that, on the neckline, I came down by 2 inches. Then after marking, I will also mark 3.5 inches. I want to just make use of half of my nipple to nipple wideness. Okay, so after that, you go ahead and connect from this point. You came down by 2 inches. Go ahead and connect it to this other point. Okay, so after connecting like this, I'll label as the yoke. Okay, I have a detailed tutorial on how to achieve this yoke, and you can just go ahead and do yours. If you don't want to make this kind of yoke, you can just leave it like that. Okay, if you don't want to have an open yoke neckline, you can just decide to leave it like that. Anyhow you choose to. So after I was done doing everything, this is what I have here, and I also notch the zip allowance side. So for the bunch at the back of our dress, I'll just go ahead and remove it. Okay. So I told you to to avoid the zip budge, you have to come up by 1 inch on the zip allowance side. You can see I did the same thing on the back piece. So after that, you just connect it in a slant line, then go ahead and cut it out. So when you join your yoke on this half length, this is what it will look like. Okay, this is what it will look like. So if you want to add loops, like you don't want to make use of the zip allowance, you can just go ahead and you remove it. Okay, you can see I folded my inside, just go ahead and cut it out. But for me, I want to add zip. Okay, so I'm not cutting anything out, just leave it like that. So this is all the patterns. This is for the front and the other one is for the back. Okay, so this is everything I have here. Okay, so the next thing to do now is to transfer all this piece to the actual fabric. Okay, I'll first start with the front piece. Now we are going to just place it right. Sorry, I'll just place it like this. Okay, so I will not add half inch for the stitching allowance on the down part. I'll just add half inch on the side and on the upper part. I'm not adding this on the downside. And you also notch your under bust in case you want to add your case you want to cut your padding, so you know where exactly to stop. Okay, so for the down part, I did not add half an inch for the stitching allowance because I already have 1 inch on the button. Okay, so go ahead and cut yours out like this, then notch the under bust. All right, so after notching and after cutting the front piece, like transfer it to the actual fabric, then you go ahead and do the same thing for the back piece. Okay, so this is the back piece. Like I said before, I did not add half inch on the down part. I just added the half inch on the side and on the upper part. This is because I already added 1 inch for the allowance and for the stitching allowance on the pattern. Okay, so after everything, guys, this is what I have here. So for the net, you can see I'm making use of this yellow net. Okay, so now I just folded it by two, then I had to place the front yoke on it. Then you go ahead and make sure you place first, then you go ahead, use your pin to pin everything in place. Make sure you pin first. Okay, so this will be very easy for you when cutting. Make sure you pin, then after pinning, I'll go ahead and cut this out, but I just added half an inch for the stitching allowance. Okay, when cutting the net, you add half inch for your stitching allowance. You can see where I added mine, and you can also see how I'll cut this out. Okay, the open yoke, this is how I just cut everything out. So when you pin it down like this, it will be very simple and easier for you. So this for the back yoke, you go ahead and do the same thing. I did not pin the back yoke. I just just go ahead and cut it out like this. Remember to add half an inch for your stitching allowance on the yoke. Okay, just like this. So after doing everything, I'll just go ahead and pin it down. So after pinning, guys, the next thing I want to do is to cut the sleeve. Okay, so for the sleeve, I'll go ahead and fold my lace. I'll just fold it by 4. Okay, it's on a fold of 4. I want to cut it together. Okay, like this. So after folding, I'll just come down by 20 inches for the length, including the allowance. Then I also came down by 3.5. Then I made my curve. All right, after that, you mark half of your round sleeve measurement. Okay, you do the same thing for the down part, then go ahead and connect. After connecting, you just go ahead and cut it out. Remember to add your seam allowance of half an inch. Okay, so after cutting it out like this is what I have here. After cutting the sleeve, I also go ahead and cut out the padding. Just look at what I'm doing here. Okay, so you stop your padding at your on your under bust. Okay, so that's why it's very important you notch your under bust so you know the exact point to stop the length of your padding. Okay, you can see my that I stopped exactly at the notched part on this piece. Okay, so also give at least almost 1 inch on the upper part so you don't have any reason to stitch on the neckline of your dress. Okay, So go ahead and cut it out. Okay, remember to give half inch or almost 1 inch for the on the upper part. Okay, so after I was done cutting everything, guys, this is what I have here. Okay, so now I will bring all my piece together, use my pin to pin everything. Then I'll just show you guys all of my piece. Okay, so this is what I have here. You can see this is the yoke, this is the upper part, this is the back piece. I'll show you my sleeve, all of it, everything that I already cut. I'll just bring it out to show you guys. So guys, in my next tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you guys on how to join this all the piece together, how to sew all this piece together. Please join me in my next tutorial so you learn and see how I achieved everything, how I joined, how I sewed everything together. Okay, so I'm also going to cut out the linings and iron my hair stays, also iron my wording on our next tutorial. Okay, so guys, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in my next one. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Okay, subscribe so you get notified once the second video is uploaded. Bye.